Are you intending to take a Class 2A license, or are you in the midst of taking? Allow me to share some of my experiences while going through the Class 2A journey, and hopefully it could help you as you go through yours as well. So hey, what's going on everyone? I'm Derek. I passed and got my Class 2A license slightly more than a year ago, sometime around in March 2021. So it was an eye-opening experience for me back then. In this video, I'll be sharing more about the course syllabus, my own experience, as well as some tips that I think could potentially help you in passing your Class 2A journey. So here's an overview of the course syllabus. There will be one theory lesson, 3 driving simulation or TPDS for short, 3 practical lessons in total, and the breakdown is as such. So for the first practical lesson, it involves the plank, pylon, slope, as well as general riding. So for the second lesson, it involves the figure 8, crank course, e-brake, bumpy course, as well as the circuit route. And for the third practical lesson, which is the last one, it will be the circuit evaluation, where you have to go through the entire circuit route with 18 or less demerit points and with no immediate failures for you to pass that lesson. So optional session includes the RV, which is the revision sessions, which is the guided revision sessions that allows you to have some time to practice on your own. So just to note that there's no road components at all for Class 2A and Class 2 licenses, because you've already done that in your Class 2B. So there's a few key things that I would like you to take note of, and these 3 things I believe is the most important thing that you need to know when you're going for your Class 2A. If there's nothing that you take away from this video, I hope that you at least remember these 3 things. So first thing that is the most important is you must remember the circuit route. If you forget the circuit route, then that's it. And the second thing is, every time that you practice, you need to be able to get used to the bike's weight as soon as you can, because in Class 2A and Class 2, it is very different from Class 2B, where Class 2B you have an extended learning period of time that allows you to get used to the bike. But in Class 2A, there's so little practices that you need to be able to get used to the weight as soon as possible. And for the third point is, for the bumpy course, listen out to the instructor's advice, if any, and just try to execute it to the best of your abilities. So going right into my Class 2A experience, I first enrolled on 14 Jan 2021, and due to the COVID restrictions, I did my registration online. The enrollment fee cost around $69.55 plus $50, so that's around $120 upfront. So immediately after the enrollment, I booked the driving simulator as well as the theory lesson. So my opinions on the theory lesson is quite meh. The instructor was simply showing all the accident videos in the past and then telling us how we suck as riders. But no matter what, this is a compulsory aspect that we cannot avoid because of safety precautions and reasons. I would say just suck it up and go through it. Immediately after my first theory lesson, I went on to book my practical session, which fortunately coincides on the same day as my first simulator. It's definitely worth it because I don't have to make a second trip down just for the practical lesson. Going down to the first practical lesson that I have, which is on plank, pylon, slope, as well as general riding. That was actually my first time trying out the Honda CB400F. It is a pretty stable bike because of its weight, and it has a very low CG. Problem that I faced with the bike was probably because of how old it was. There was some difficulties that I faced when I'm trying to kick it up to the second gear. So it's a little bit stiff and it's quite difficult to kick it up. So I really have to put in a lot of strength just to kick it up to the second gear. Overall, the lesson was really smooth. I was able to stay on the plank all the way for all the tries. I didn't knock down any cones for the pylon. I guess a tip for you would be, after you completed the plank, just make sure you leave a little bit of space between you and the white line before you go on for your pylon. This allows you to have a little bit more leeway for you to do the build up as you rev. For myself, usually before I approach the pylon, I usually give it a good rev, and I make sure that I am in second gear even before I go past the first cone. Why I do this is because once I've kicked it up to second gear, it gives me the necessary speed that I need. I'll just close my throttle and I'll just weave my way through the cones, and only when I'm approaching the last cone, then that's where I would open up the throttle again and then speed off. So for slope, nothing much really, because it's practically the same as the Class 2B components, just that you have a more powerful bike, and which means it's easier to go up the slope effectively. Now I'll be talking a bit more about the Class 2A bike and the experience that I had overall when I was learning. The power, I must say, is definitely really different from that of a Class 2B. When you try it out, you don't really have to open the throttle as much to get the same amount of power, and you need to be able to get used to it fast, especially if you are riding a Class 2B bike on your own outside, because there will be the difference in the power level, especially when you go for lessons, so that takes a little bit to get used to every single session. So for me, it was a first time pass for the lesson, and I moved on to the second one. After the first practical lesson, I went for my TPDS straight. To be frank, it was very anticlimactic, as honestly it's quite unrealistic. For those who have attended before, I believe you would agree, and the audio is pretty bad because it's in the same room as the driving simulators, throughout the entire session you'll just be hearing multiple instructions across and you do not know which one is actually belonging to yours because all the audio is pretty mixed. And overall I would say that it's very unrealistic, and while the intent of having this simulator is good because it is supposed to help you be more aware of the road conditions before you actually drive or ride in the roads outside, but it is really unrealistic for it to be effective in helping new drivers or riders be accustomed to what they're supposed to be used to. So going on to the second practical lesson, which is on the figure 8, crank course, e-brake, bumpy course, as well as the circuit route. So for figure 8 and crank course is very similar to 2B, same route, same location, same spots. So I always make sure that I kick it up to the second gear before I enter into any course. This is so that there's less thing for me to worry about when I'm doing the next circuit component. So there's only one point of caution for the figure 8 that I face myself, is that when I'm exiting out of the course, I always end up making a wide turn because of the weight of the bike and because I wasn't very used to it. So in terms of the turning and the handling, I wasn't very comfortable with it. I end up making a wide turn. So I often got points deducted there, but nevertheless, it takes quite a bit to get used to and it'll get better eventually. For the e-brake, we have to hit 40 km per hour instead of the one that we were used to in class 2B, which was 35 km per hour. And for class 2B, we have to stop behind the yellow line, whereas for class 2A and class 2, we have to stop between the yellow and red line. I'm not sure if you realize, but on the class 2A and class 2 bikes, there's no light indicators in front of them, whereas for the class 2B bikes, there's always those 3 light indicators, which are the things that the instructors and the TP use to gauge whether or not you have hit the correct speed for e-brake. And how do the instructors and TP know whether or not the class 2A riders have hit the 40 km per hour mark? There's only one simple way to find out whether or not you are able to stop in between the yellow and red lines. If you stop before the first line, that means you don't have sufficient speed to help you kick up to 40 km per hour and be able to stop in between those 2 lines. So that's just one thing for you to take note, that if you don't stop between those 2 lines, then most likely you'll have points deducted. And the last part on the bumpy course, so it was one of the more challenging courses for me. So it took me a while to get used to the motion of it and how to really navigate through the bumpy course. Trick that the instructor often mentioned is to get your body as close to the body of the bike as much as possible so that you are kind of in tune with it, and make sure you have good control over the throttle grip, because you don't want to accidentally open the throttle while your bike is going over the bumps, which can cause you to lose control, of course. So just do not accidentally open the rev because you're going over the bumps. And I would also say listen to the instructor as much as possible. Usually they will give good advice and how you can better manage and overcome the bumps effectively within the stipulated time. Just practice it a few times more and I believe you'll do well in it. And going on to the circuit route, so basically as mentioned previously at the start of the video, this is the one thing that you must memorize and be proficient in. You cannot afford to forget the route, because if you were to go the wrong direction, or even if you have that hesitation on turning into the wrong lane, that's an immediate failure for you. So just do take note of it. And before we continue, if you find that the video has been helpful so far, do drop this video a like, as well as to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on more content as such. And moving on to the third practical lesson, which is the circuit evaluation. So I was rather nervous, but all I had to do was just keep my cool and then stay calm and just go for it. Treat it like another practice. So I must say that when you're taking the class 2A and class 2 license, the trainers would usually treat you with a little bit more respect, because they know that you guys are not completely new riders. You guys already have your 2B license. Usually they'll be a little bit more brother with you, right? They won't be so strict and treat you like a kid. So for the third practical lesson, we started off with a quick revision to go through the different courses and have a sufficient warm-up. So I remember there was 4 other 2A riders and 1 class 2 rider with us. Warm-up was cut short due to the bad weather and it was kind of like going to rain, so we had to return to the shelter shortly after. And the instructor back then wasn't very clear with his instructions, so we wasted over 15 minutes just sitting down there and doing nothing, when we could have just gotten the raincoat and suit up, just go for another round of practice, which would definitely be helpful no matter what. But instead he told us to remain in the shelter and not wear the raincoat, although it looks like it's gonna rain already. After he is done with his dilemma, then he decided to ask us to wear the raincoats, but by that time it was already time for the evaluation. So as we went through the circuit evaluation, what I could vaguely remember is that I committed the wide turning at the figure 8, but I'm okay with it. So I would rather get the demerit point for making a wide turn than to get an immediate failure for striking the curb or putting down my right leg. So I felt that I did pretty decently for the circuit evaluation, and we're just waiting for the results from the instructor. What happened was the instructor first called out for the first number, and he told the guy some comments, and then he told him to leave shortly after. And subsequently, when he called for the rest of us, he called everybody else, and he slowly gave out each of our result slips, and he said that all of us have to come back again. And we all were a little bit disappointed because we were thinking like, oh shit, that means we failed, right? He said that you all have to come back for the RV and prepare for your TP. So it was kind of a change of events, and when we compared our results afterwards, all of us got 18 points right on the dot. So for myself, I got a few points deducted because of the wide turning, etc. And also I got a few points deducted because of the posture during the bumpy course. Because I was wearing the raincoat, it made it seem like I wasn't doing the half squat position properly. And if you guys know, the raincoat is extremely huge, so definitely I would literally look like I'm sitting down. But nevertheless, I have to complete the remaining TPDS as well as the TP itself. TPDS 2 and 3, I managed to complete them relatively quickly, but I only managed to book them 1.5 weeks after the third practical lesson, and immediately after I completed the TPDS, I went on to book for the TP. So in total, prior to taking on the TP, I went for 2 RV sessions to really help me practice and be familiar with what is going on in terms of the routes as well as the course components. So what's the difference between the RV as compared to the SP that you have during the Class 2B is that for the SP, which is also known as self-practice, you literally go on a self-practice and do any of the course that you want and just practice them as many times as you like. But for the RV, for Class 2A and Class 2 licenses, you need to follow the instructor as it is a guided revision session, and you can't just go on any course that you want as and when you want. There'll only be a certain stipulated timing for you to go for a specific course to practice on your own. So naturally, the amount of time that you have to practice for a specific course would definitely be shorter than you would have on the SP. So because there isn't any SP for the Class 2A, I could only rely on the RV sessions to really help myself be more familiarized with the bumpy course. So when it comes down to the TP test, so I woke up extra early in the morning to make sure that I wasn't late when I reached BBDC. So I was feeling quite nervous because I was afraid that I might make silly mistakes, and also the worst thing is making an immediate failure. So during the warm-up, I had to share a bike with another person because there's only a limited amount of Class 2A bikes, but there's more exam takers than the number of bikes that are available, so we had to share with each other. Because of the sharing, then my warm-up time was being cut short, but nevertheless, it was a great warm-up and I was gearing to go. So onto the test, I tried to keep myself collected. I just tell myself that this is another practice session and just go for it, and that there's really nothing much to worry about. But throughout the course, I felt that I made some mistakes here and there, like just enough to warrant some demerit points, but not any immediate failures, such as early checking of blind spots as well as even inaccurate checking along the way. So after I'm done with the test, I went over to the canteen to just chill and to wait for the test results. So we had to wait around 1.5 hours to 2 hours for the results to come out. So after the waiting period, we all gathered, and then I'm very glad that they didn't call for my number, because usually if they were to call your number first, you most likely didn't make it and you have to come back again, because that's where they will tell you what mistakes you have made and then come back again. So after all the numbers were being called, and then the remaining bulk of people that are left, then the final head instructor will come in and say, everyone, you passed and all that, hee-ha. After that, we just have to fill up our feedback forms and then get our new license. If you felt that the video has been helpful for you so far, do drop this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more of such content. Do drop a comment if you have any other questions or if there's any other thing that you would like to see more of. So I sincerely hope that for whoever that is watching this, and if you're taking your Class 2A, your Class 2 or even your Class 2B license, I really hope that you'll be able to pass and your efforts will definitely pay off. Just don't give up and keep pursuing and going after the license. You will definitely make it and you will definitely get your license. So stay safe guys, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.